Okay, great. Thank you all for tuning in for today's webinar, Building an IDA Program for Your Organization. It's hosted by the Illinois Asset Building Group, IABG, and the Federal Assets for Independence Program, AFI, which is housed in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. IABG is a statewide coalition that works to increase access to the tools people need to build financial security. We do this in two different ways. Number one, by supporting community organizations as they strengthen their asset building programs and financial empowerment programs. This webinar is just one example of how we try to build and support the field. Number two, we advocate for policy changes at the state and local levels that remove barriers to savings opportunities. You can learn more about our work and how to join the coalition on our website at www.illinoisassetbuilding.org. To take care of housekeeping matters at the start, I would just like to let everyone know that besides current presenters, everyone will be placed on mute to ensure clear audio today. Please do not put this call on hold, so in the event that you might accidentally become unmuted, the holding sound does not bother the rest of the group. You can use the chat tool at the bottom of your GoToWebinar menu to ask questions as we go throughout the webinar. Make sure that you select the organizer at the bottom before asking your question. You should also use the chat feature if you have any problems or difficulties, like the one I just experienced, if you can't hear the presenters or see the presentations. So please message me if you incur any of these problems. So I will be trying to do my best to answer questions as they come in, but a question and answer period at the end will be held. We also have a person over here at our end who will be collecting your questions ahead of time for that period. To intercept with the usually popular question ahead of time, we will be posting a video recording of the event on our IABG website. You'll be receiving a post-webinar email with that address. We hope that by the end of this hour, everyone will have a better understanding of whether an IDA program is right for their organization, how to go about starting one, and if that is the case, also the lessons learned from two programs currently offering an IDA or IDA-like match savings program. So to give you a brief outline of the webinar's agenda, there will be 4 presenters. Myself, I'm Ethan Brown, Program Associate at IABG and Heartland Alliance, will be facilitating today's webinar. Our first presenter is Emily Appel-Newby, a technical assistance provider with the AFI Resource Center, who will walk us through AFI's IDA program requirements and what to consider when planning an IDA program. Megan Schmitz, financial literacy specialist at Catholic Charities of the Archdiocese of Chicago, will then describe their AFI-funded IDA program and their lessons learned in recently starting one up. Lastly, Melinda Crows, Asset Building Manager with Heartland Human Care Services, will talk about their IDEA program, IDEA, a pre-IDA like they like to call it, and the lessons they've learned from running it for multiple years. We have a lot of amazing information to hear today, so Emily, would you like to start us off?
Sure, yeah, I'm really excited to be with you today, and I'm going to walk through some slides that I put together to help think about what an IDA program could look like at your organization and how the Federal Assets for Independence program can could help you with thinking through what a program could look like at your site. A little bit of background about myself. I am with the Resource Center, the AFI Resource Center, so we provide technical assistance to prospective applicants as well as current grantees, and I've been doing this for about 2 years, and so I've seen a lot of different types of organizations from, very large budget, heavily staffed, like groups like community action agencies to very small groups like small credit unions who are interested in starting IDAs, and help them think about how an AFI type project could be a good fit for their organization. Before this, I ran the IDA Network project in the Washington, D.C. area for about 3 years, and so that gives me some on-the-ground experience with IDAs as well. So as you may know, the Assets for Independence program is a federal grant program that provides 5-year project period grants to community-based organizations that work with low-income individuals in their community to help them learn about financial and consumer issues as well as to save in IDAs. And the goals of the program are to help those individuals become more self-sufficient and plan for the future and develop enabling behaviors that will help them prepare for a successful future, and then also invest in a life-changing asset. So common in all AFI IDA programs across the country, there are over 300 grantees right now currently offering IDAs. Everyone offers financial education as well as asset-specific training. So financial education, there's no one set curriculum that you have to use, but rather, rather what the reviewers look for in looking at your proposal is making sure that you've picked out a curriculum that effectively meets the needs of the target population that you want to work with. And then asset-specific training, so training that's relevant to whatever they're going to invest in their money in. So, for example, home buyer education for people who are looking to buy homes. So that helps them make wise asset purchases and helps them understand when they're ready and really what size and scope of asset purchase they might want to make that's going to have the best return on investment for them in particular. Additionally, in all AFI IDA programs, there's a requirement or the expectation that people will save earned income in these individual development accounts. So the individual saver has to have a source of earned income either from full-time, part-time, or self-employment, or even something less formal like a stipend from a job training program to make their deposits out of. And then, of course, their end goal is to purchase an asset. So this can be one of three things: a first home, higher education, or job training from an accredited educational institution, or to develop or expand a small business. And then finally, a fourth use is transfer to a dependent, so someone in their home, in their household or family, for the purposes of purchasing one of these three assets. So just so you have a visual idea of how an AFI IDA works, in case IDAs are a little bit new of a concept to you, you can see there's the green box, there's $1,000 of savings that the individual puts in. Then the yellow box is the matching funds that they receive, and then the blue box at the bottom is the total dollar amount that they have available to help them invest in their assets. That's why it's called a matched savings program, because they save and then that savings gets matched. So you can see that our sample saver here, Iris, is looking to go to college. The IDA program in her area is offering a 4-to-1 match rate. AFI match rates can go up to 8-to-1. But there is a maximum in terms of the amount of federal assistance matching funds that each individual can receive, which is set at $2,000. And then, as with many federal grants, there's a requirement that non-federal funds have to be used also to support the goals of the program. So her $4,000, half of it is going to be from her group's federal AFI grant, and half of it is going to be from the non-federal funds that her IDA program has also raised. And so, reaching $1,000 savings goal is probably going to take her a while. So, she sat down with the financial educator at her IDA program, and they took a look at her budget, and they figured out that she could reasonably save about $42 a month over 2 years, and that would help her, and that would be how she could reach the $1,000. So it's definitely not that she just dropped it in all at once, but that she worked towards it over a period of time, and that the IDA program provided her with support and encouragement and celebrated milestones along the way to keep her involved. And so then what does the education look like? She's going to take courses in financial education from a local nonprofit that's either the grantee or another entity that they partner with. And maybe she's going to work with the financial aid counselors and academic advisors at her college to help her pick a program, a degree or certificate to work towards that's going to have good job prospects in her area, and then help her pick the courses that she needs in order to complete that degree on time. So those are part of her making a smart asset investment in her education. And so as I mentioned, there are more than 350 organizations that are throughout the country that are currently offering AFI programs. And these are some of the different types of agencies that are able to apply for AFI funds and run AFI programs: 501c3s, state, local, and tribal government agencies, community development financial institutions, low-income designated credit unions, and then also consortia of organizations and agencies that might target multiple service areas, and so we call those a network project. So every AFI grantee will need to bring in partners to help deliver its project, but a network project is kind of a specific name in and of itself where for a specific kind of project where there's a centralized agency that kind of does the back-end administrative work, and then decentralized sub-grantees that do the one-on-one client interaction. So that's just another way for you to think about how you could approach an AFI grant, an AFI project. Then you can go on to use this link to locate a project near you, and I have to say that Illinois is woefully underserved by AFI IDA programs, I believe. I don't think there's nearly enough to match what I would imagine would be the demand among low-income residents in the state, or definitely the major metropolitan areas. And so that's why I'm so happy to get to work with the Illinois Asset Building Group today, so that we can hopefully try to get some of you interested and excited about starting an IDA program, especially one with AFI funds. And that's definitely what we're here for, is to help you see how to make it possible. Okay, so now I'm going to go into some key topics for planning an AFI IDA project, so you can think through what it might look like. So the first question to ask is, how's the fit for your organization? Does it support your mission? I would assume that many of you it does, since you're already part of this asset building group. Then you also want to think about the target population that you might serve, and how, because we believe that the individual development account is a valuable asset building tool, but it's not right for every single person at every single point in their lives. And so you want to think about people who have a certain degree of stability, things like probably maybe housing stability, and then definitely probably some degree of employment stability because of that requirement to make deposits from earned income. So, of course, any of us can have an employment crisis, but somebody who at least has, if not from the same job, has been able to maintain employment for the past couple of months, they're probably in a better position to start saving and then to take on the responsibilities of something like home ownership if they do have that level of stability. Because, what we really want you to think through as part of the application process is not just, oh, man, I'm, matching funds for helping, start a small business. That sounds good. I think everybody that I work with would be interested in that. But to really think through the different characteristics of the populations that you serve or that you would like to engage, and think about who has the real capacity and the potential to participate, complete the savings purchase, and purchase an asset. And so you can think about that in terms of things like, do they regularly show up to classes, even if the class is like a series of, maybe 4 or 6 classes. They're good at attending. They're good at meeting deadlines. They're good at keeping appointments. Things like that indicate that they may be more successful, because AFI does require a sustained savings habit where you have to make deposits every month. And so that shows that's a little bit of commitment that is required on behalf of this program, not to mention the other things that are going to go into just the advanced work that you have to do in terms of thinking about purchasing one of these major assets. If you're starting a small business, do they have a serious and feasible business idea? Even if you don't understand, even if you don't know much about how to determine the feasibility of, for example, a business idea, you can engage partners like a small business development center or a business incubator group or even a financial institution to help get them help with writing a business plan, and they can determine the feasibility of the idea. And you don't even necessarily have to do that before they enroll in the IDA, but you probably want to do that early on so that they're working towards a goal that you think is actually going to be a valuable investment of their funds and resources and time. So then this slide just kind of runs through quickly the allowable uses of AFI IDA funds, so both the savings and the match that the person receives. So in terms of a home, it's the cost of acquiring a residence, and then in addition, settlement financing or closing costs. For education, the focus is on tuition and fees, books, supplies, and other things are actually required for attending courses. And so this can include a computer, which is great because other financial aid programs may not allow that as something that can be purchased. And then for a small business is any business expense that's included in the approved business plan by one of those groups like an SBDC or a financial institution. And so just to clarify how we kind of safeguard that the money is used as intended is that the funds are paid directly to the third-party vendor by the IDA program, so by the grantee, on behalf of the client. So the funds never enter just into the client's hands, but they're paid directly to the vendor, and that's the accountability measure. So when you're thinking about who you might want to enroll, you would want to think about those things in terms of who has a need for financing help with those specific areas of making those asset investments. But then there's also just basic participant eligibility requirements that's set by the legislation that created the AFI program. So there's actually two ways of looking at participant eligibility. The first is if they're eligible for the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program in your state, then they would be also, their household would also be eligible for an AFI program. Or you can look at a combined income and assets test. And so the income and asset test, the income side of that looks at if their household is EITC eligible, so Earned Income Tax Credit eligible, or they have an annual household income of less than twice the federal poverty level. This was about $44,700 for a family of 4, but that probably is still the 2012 number. And on the asset test side, the household has to have a net worth of less than $10,000, excluding the value of a residence and 1 motor vehicle. So when we say net worth, that is the value of their current assets minus any debts, such as what might show up on their credit report. And so just to point out that this participant eligibility is determined at the household level. So it's so you have to take into account any earned income or assets held by other income generators at the household level. But then it's the requirement to have the earned income for savings deposits. That's determined at the individual level. The actual person who is enrolling in the program, they're the ones who have to have the savings, have to have the earned income. But then you as a grantee may have additional requirements whereby, say you specifically want to serve people who live in a specific housing project or zip code, or you specifically want to serve men and women who are survivors of domestic violence. And that's totally up to you, and that's fine as far as AFI is concerned for you to tailor your program and just show that you're going to create a program that's going to be especially responsive to their needs. So a little bit, just a couple more things about how you can design the program. I've talked about, so there's many different aspects of the way your project is going to be set up, particularly the amount of matching that they can earn that is going to be set by you in your proposal. And what I'd like to do is invite you to attend one of the full webinars that the Assets for Independence Resource Center offers that will help you fully understand the decisions that you have to make as part of the proposal process and what you have to be able to convey about your organization's capacity and what you plan to offer. So let me see if I can get to that schedule really quick. Yeah, so here is the schedule for the upcoming applicant webinar series. So the next round is actually going to start, it looks like next week. We're going to start with webinar 1, Planning an AFI Project, and so that's going to go into the details of how you need to, of what you need to think about this kind of fit question, both for your organization and the populations you want to serve and the processes that you'll want to put together. Webinar 2 specifically focuses on walking you through the funding opportunity announcement to help you prepare a successful application. And then webinar 3 is around developing resources and partners, because as I mentioned, all AFI programs are going to have a partner involved in their project. multiple partners probably. So for example, one crucial partner is the financial institution partner that, that they're going to use. So towards the bottom of this list, we see holding IDAs in the project reserve fund. So that's going to be the role of a financial institution if the grantee themselves is not a financial institution, of course. So finding a financial institution that is both accessible to your to your savers for the purposes of making deposits, as well as someone who can work well with your staff to help communicate IDA program rules to clients, and also give your agency the information it needs to stay on top of project management and individual client progress by providing you with account statements and maybe even electronic access to view activity records on the individual development accounts. And then also they'll hold the project reserve fund, which is where all the matching funds are held while you're enrolling new savers and while you are and while they're working towards their savings goal and getting ready to make an asset purchase. And so other roles that partners can play in delivering a successful IDA program include recruitment, delivering the financial education and asset training, delivering credit counseling, or something like EITC outreach and free tax assistance. And then, of course, our funders are what we would also consider to be your partners. As I mentioned before, there's that one-to-one non-federal cash contribution that is required for any applicant. And the money basically, so if you're going to apply for a $50,000 AFI grant, you have to have a documentation of commitment from a funder for another $50,000. This is going to be used in the same ways that your federal funds are going to be used. Specifically, 85% of the funds have to be set aside to match participant savings, so to be the match, and then 15% can be spent on program operation costs. And then that 15% is broken down even a little bit more detailed, as you can see in this slide here. This slide shows the most common sources of non-federal funds that AFI grantees across the country are able to tap into to support their project. Financial institutions and their foundations, state and local governments, other foundations like local, community, and regional, locally based corporations or employers, and then even sponsoring organizations' funds, if that's a possibility. But we see that most often with institutions of higher education, which are able to tap into their existing scholarship funds so that they can use the scholarship funds as the match for that 85%, and then they find other operating funds as the match for the 15%, because their scholarship funds were already going to be paid out on behalf of low-income students, so they might as well leverage that to look for a way to double basically the amount of scholarship funds they have available. So that's really what if you can think of any parallel opportunities within the work that you do, where there's already assistance being paid out, either public at the local or state level, or private, where you can see assistance being paid out to low-income individuals for goals that parallel what AFI IDAs cover, then you should definitely think about how you can make the pitch to them that they could actually double the amount of assistance that they can offer, or double the number of people they can provide assistance to by partnering with you on an AFI project. So I just want to let you know that the next application due dates and the ones for 2013 are going to be March 25th, so it's coming up pretty soon, and then also May 24th, and so that gives you a good bit of time to put together a project. And those are actually the final ones for 2013, so it would be probably holding off until January or March of 2014 after that. But whether you're ready to go now and you would want to start putting together a project now, or want to start slowly and put time into developing a project for an eventual proposal in 2014, again, the AFI Resource Center is available to help you and provide technical assistance along the way. So here's our contact information. We're available by phone at 1-866-778-6037, or by email at info@idaresources.org. Again, my name is Emily Appel-Newby, but we also have a couple other great technical assistance providers, my colleagues Colleen and Katerina, who have experience helping grantees put together proposals and can also help you as well. So now that I've had the chance to talk about AFI from the big picture point of view, I would love to be able to hand it over to Megan to be able to talk about what her experience looks like running an AFI program on the ground in one specific area of the country and for a specific target population. So we've asked Megan to tell us about to tell you guys about her project, how she's created one, and how she's created one that meets the needs of her target population while also complying with federal AFI requirements. So Megan?
Yeah, thanks, Emily. I don't know if I can take full credit for starting up the operation. I'm actually more of a facilitator while I wasn't too involved with the grant writing, but I will take credit for definitely trying to facilitate it and definitely get things moving. But thank you, Emily. Like she said, my name is Megan Schmitz, and I'm a financial literacy specialist at Catholic Charities. And I'll start out with, here we go, a quick overview of Catholic Charities. We started in 1917 and run just over 162 programs. I work in the Lake County office, which is located in Waukegan, Illinois. The motivation for applying for this grant was from the participants in our Family Self-Sufficiency Program, which I'll be referring to as FSS. FSS is a 5-year intensive case management program focused on helping single parents work towards their education, employment, and financial goals. Why AFI? AFI is a great fit for our program because of our emphasis on financial self-sufficiency. Asset building promotes self-sufficiency, kind of baseline there. And because of this, the IDA program fits in so well with our Family Self-Sufficiency Program. IDAs at Catholic Charities, our match rate is 2-to-1. Participants are only allowed to use their savings towards their education, business development, or a first-time home purchase. These savings can also be used for a spouse or a child. Because this is a pilot program that has just started, my day-to-day activities involve contacting clients regarding the program, completing eligibility forms, and ensuring that paperwork is complete in order for clients to be able to open accounts. I actually have a client who is going to open her account this week, and that'll be our first account that we're opening in the program, so we're really excited about that. There is a lot of work that goes into getting a client set up in the program, and I can imagine that maintenance will not be as cumbersome as getting the client set up. I think that with this being a new program and something that's a lot of our clients aren't familiar with, it has been a little difficult starting up and getting the information out there and getting everyone really excited about it, as excited as we are here at Catholic Charities. I am a full-time case manager with a caseload of 50 clients in the Family Self-Sufficiency Program, and I do also facilitate the IDA program. Our IDA candidates are single parents from our FSS program. We chose FSS clients for the program because we have already established relationships with them, and we are confident that they will be reliable and good participants in the IDA program. We are currently working on filling 25 accounts. 15 are for our own Catholic Charities employees who qualify, and 10 accounts are for our FSS clients. We received our AFI grant in April of 2012, but have only now begun completing applications with clients. Like I said before, I do have one participant who's going to open her account this week, so we're really excited about that. The overall process, I think, has been longer than anticipated due to policies and procedures that had to be written, collaborating with Wintrust on this unique account system, and raising awareness of this opportunity to the clients. This is a brand new program that these clients have probably never heard of before, but Wintrust is actually our financial institution that we are partnering with. They are a group of banks in the area, and they've been very gracious to actually match our AFI grant that we received. So the other match that we're contributing for our clients is from Wintrust. So that's been great. And like I just said, we don't partner with any other organizations. I would like to see in the future possibly partnering for the financial literacy presentations, but our main funders are Assets for Independence and Wintrust, and we're going to see how this first test run goes and hopefully continue with more accounts. Our clients who have heard a little bit about it have gotten really excited, and I did get a flood of phone calls, at the beginning when we said we were starting to open up accounts and applications. But, like Emily had mentioned before, we've needed to make sure that, these goals are feasible. And, obviously a client who's about to file bankruptcy, it might not be feasible for her or him to go ahead and open an IDA account to buy a first-time home. So these are things that we're working with and kind of, learning as we go. In my experience, I think it's important to portray the appropriate message about the program. When I'm meeting with clients, I tell them, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You're on your way to starting your savings goal. This is a really competitive program. We only have 10 slots available. It's like getting paid $50 to $75 an hour for a job that's easy. I actually went to a training with a bunch of other IDA facilitators, and someone mentioned that the way he advertised it to his clients was doing out the math on how many hours it would take, monthly and throughout the whole program, and how much, the match would be. And for us, it's $2,000 per client maximum. So I did the math and found out that it's like these clients would be getting paid $50 to $75 per hour for participating in our program. So I think that's a pretty good deal, and I'd like to sign up for that. And I think that a lot of them are taking that opportunity, which is great. I think that the requirements, and rules of the grant and the program are very specific, but I also think that, it's important for the client to get really excited about the program and their savings goal. This is their shot at, less stress, a better life for their children, more control over their lives by, participating in asset building. I think that, something I've learned along the way with this IDA program is, there are a lot of other financial literacy options out there. I've attended a lot of trainings lately and see a lot of research out there on these prize-linked savings programs, lottery programs, tax return options, and bonds. There's also a blog called Bank Talk that I found very helpful. It's a blog for the underbanked and unbanked. And, I think, my advice would be to try and make your program unique. I've heard of an organization where their clients could not use their IDA savings on a for-profit college because they tend to target our clients, and I guess there actually is a 28% completion rate for a 4-year degree. So, basically this program I had heard of was discouraging predatory lending. I believe that's an organization up in Milwaukee who also does IDA accounts. I've also heard of a program that included a process of, first the client comes to them and they get some training. Then the next step once they complete that is to see a budgeting coach. Then their case manager helps them stabilize their utility bills, and they get on a budget plan so they can afford them and aren't getting, outrageous utility bills. Then once that step's completed, they have, debt consolidation and a loan fund. Then once they complete that, they go into their match savings account or IDA program, and then regular financial literacy meetings. So I feel like every financial literacy or every IDA program has different rules, different systems, and I think, they're specific to what your community needs are. And, I guess maybe one less lesson learned is while completing applications, I found incentive and removing barriers is very helpful. We start with a screening form that I've done over the phone with clients rather than starting out with a 4- or 5-page application, just making it a little easier. Our clients are busy. In our situation, they're all single parents, so getting them to come in here 3 or 4 times, right off the bat might be a lot of work for them. So, removing those barriers, which might be transportation, who knows. Also maybe having an accountability partner, partnering up in the program, and if your car breaks down, your partner will take you to go make your deposit. And, I've also heard of incentives for direct deposit. If you set up direct deposit, you only have to meet with a coach once every quarter instead of once every month. So I think these are some lessons that I've picked up through various trainings that, have been very helpful. A lot of my advice, I think, for those with IDA programs, comes from speaking with other IDA facilitators like I just mentioned. And, while I was at an AFI training in Tallahassee, I was able to connect with a lot of other facilitators, which was incredibly helpful putting our IDA program kind of into action. But, Emily had given me some websites that I think, would be incredibly helpful for those who are looking to build an IDA program. I'm sorry, I wasn't able to put them on our PowerPoint, but IDAresources.org, also IDAresources.org/project builder, and I have a couple other websites that I'd be more than happy to send out. But, I would encourage others involved with match savings programs to connect with other organizations if at all possible. I'm more than happy to speak with anyone or give, any of our resources if they're looking to start, if you're looking to start an IDA program. And I think with that, I will let Melinda speak on her match savings account program at Heartland Alliance.
Okay. Good afternoon. This is Melinda from Heartland Alliance. Thanks, Megan and Emily, for the great information that you have shared today. I am going to talk about the IDEA initiative that we've had at Heartland Alliance since about 2006. IDEA is a little bit different than your traditional IDA program. In some ways, we consider it a pre-IDA because we're targeting participants who have lower income and who may not have the same goals that IDAs generally require, those goals of starting a small business or home ownership or education. So we don't use AFI funding, but have found funding elsewhere, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So the IDEA initiative is a 6 to 12-month asset development initiative that provides individual consultations that helps participants work on financial, career, or housing goals. So we work with participants fairly intensely on these goals, given that they are all just so deeply intertwined with each other that participants need to be able to increase their income and have employment stability in order to save over the long term. If they have a housing crisis, that definitely impacts their financial stability as well. So we're working on all of these goals with our participants. And then we have financial education and career workshops. We require participants to complete at least 10 hours of financial education while they're in the program. And then we have a match savings program as well, which I'll talk about in more detail momentarily. The eligibility for IDEA is that they need to be age 18 or over, a female head of household, currently working, and have an earned income between $10,000 and $40,000 per year. I should also say that we have done this same model of program with participants who are receiving Social Security or Social Security disability income and have been successful with that as well if they have been in subsidized housing. So I wouldn't necessarily let income be having earned income be a deterrent to starting a program if you do have a population of participants who is able to save because of other housing subsidies or things along those lines. But for the purposes of the actual IDEA program, we do have this requirement of $10,000 to $40,000, which was a requirement of one of our funders as well. And then living or working in Chicago. And then we also like to let participants know that they would need to spend about 4 to 6 hours per month on program activities, which would include going to some groups and individual consultations with the staff, and then also just some of the homework or follow-up activities that they would need to do in order to really get the most out of the program. Let me make this a full screen. Okay, there we go. Okay. And like I said before, we do have the 10 hours of financial education that are required through Heartland. We do complete all of the financial education ourselves, though we will occasionally have guest speakers come in as well. We do an asset development plan, which the participant would identify their financial and career goals. And then the participant is required to meet with the asset development coordinator 1 time per month for at least 6 months. Participants do have a maximum time of 12 months in the program, but they could complete the program in as little as 6 months, assuming that they've met their savings requirements in that time. But we do make it a little bit flexible for them. The match savings program works that participants receive a 2-to-1 match. For every $1 that they save, we give them $2 so that they would have a $600 minimum at the end of their time in the program. So participants have their own bank accounts. They can either open up a new account or they can use an existing account that they have, and they provide savings documentation to us to us each month. We don't have our names on their accounts. We don't partner with any specific financial institution. Given that we do work with participants all over the city of Chicago, which is, of course, very large, we want participants to be able to choose the institution that best works for them. In order to receive the match, they do need to be enrolled in IDEA. They have to have a savings account. They have to make a savings deposits in at least 5 out of any 6-month period, and the participant determines how much they save within that period. So a participant might have a rough month one time, and they might only be able to put in $5 into their account. That's fine. The next month they might be able to contribute $50. So we don't specify how much they need to save each month, which has proven successful for us as well. But they do need to make 5 consecutive monthly deposits to build the habit of savings. And we do require a bank statement at the end of their time in the program and no withdrawals, or else they would need to start over again. We do actually have 2 different options for savings in the program. One is the traditional savings account. The other option is for participants to pay down a debt, and that could be a debt like a credit card or a utility bill or rent, something along those lines, something that's meaningful for them. And the participant would need to show proof that they paid down that debt and that it was above the amount that they were paying before. Obviously, interest on savings accounts is not very good these days, but interest on credit cards or things along those lines is quite high. So for many participants, it's more advantageous to them in the long term to pay down a debt, reduce the amount of money that's going out the door that way, and also to take care of that high interest rather than putting money aside. So participants have the options to do either choice. Funding. We have received funding from a variety of sources. Several foundations in the Chicago area have funded us. We've also received private donations, and with revenue received from fee-for-service partners that we charge to do financial education on-site for their employees. And if you have any further questions, I am happy to answer any questions about our program at any time. My contact information is on the screen, and I will pass it back to the organizers with that.
Hi, Melinda. Thanks. I thought this was an amazing amount of information from all 3 presenters. We're going to be switching over to the question and answer period. So the first question that I have currently, I'm unmuting all of the presenters just so they can all jump in whenever they feel the need. First question I have that we received is for Emily. I've heard that that in the past it was difficult to cover the administration costs for an AFI IDA program. Has that changed?
That's a great question. The amount of funding that you can use from the federal grant is the same as it always has been. The 15% of both your federal and your non-federal funding that's going towards the project can be used for covering the costs of administration and operation and that kind of thing. So, we find that the grantees who are most successful in covering the costs of putting together a complete and full successful project while still, staying within the bounds of that 15% are those who are able to do 2 things. One is to leverage their funding sources that they already have inside the organization. So, if you're already receiving, and I think that if you're already receiving funds to pay for someone to do case management services, then instead of creating a whole new position to do case management for the IDA program, rather you weave those responsibilities in with those persons' responsibilities. And I think that what we saw with the example we saw with Megan at Catholic Charities is the prime example of that. How she probably case manages people on other projects besides the IDA, but this is just one of the ways her specific skill set is used. And so you can think about that being true across all different components of delivering an IDA program in terms of homebuyer counseling, case management, project and grant management, and report writing. So just kind of making it as efficient as possible within your organization. And then the second main way that people, make this a program like this work within their agency is to engage the partners, because there are definitely, set core components that you have to offer as part of the AFI IDA, and then wraparound services that you have to offer in order to increase the success of your savers. So the more you can engage partners to deliver those components and services, obviously then that's not a direct cost to your agency that has to be covered under that 15%. So, like I said, lots of organizations are doing it, and I think that they're making it work in different ways, but I think those are two of the strategies that we see the most.
Excellent. Really helpful. I have Shirley Griffin, who I'm going to unmute right now, so get ready to talk. She's raised her hand to ask a question. Shirley, do you have a question for one of the presenters?
Yes, can you hear me through my computer here?
Can do.
Okay.
Yep.
The question is for Megan, and I'm actually with Country Financial, and we are involved in teaching financial literacy, and I'm just wondering if, through seminars, if Megan is open to working with financial services companies such as ours.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I guess, since this is a new program for us, we're kind of just flying by the seat of our pants and kind of seeing how things work out. But as far as I know right now, I was planning on doing the financial literacy workshops that are mandatory as part of being a participant in our IDA program. But I would absolutely love the opportunity to, present other partners to my supervisor and our department director. So if you want to send me an email, I would love to share your contact information with them and see if they might be interested in moving forward with another partnership.
Okay, thank you. I'll send an email for you.
Great, thank you.
Great. So we have another question out here. I guess this one was for everyone. If one of you can speak towards it. What determines the match rate for a program? For example, Megan's program has a 2-to-1 match rate. Emily mentioned some programs can be up to 4-to-1. What's the difference?
Yeah, this is Emily. I'll take that one. AFI gives its grantees the discretion to set the match rate that they want to offer. But that's something that you have to explain in your proposal, what match rate you want to offer and your justification for why you want to do it. Your match rate can be anywhere from a 1-to-1 match rate up to an 8-to-1 match rate. So, I think our most common match rates that we see from by grantees across the country are like a 2-to-1 or a 3-to-1 match rate. And so just as the clarification is, the program that I'm representing, this is Emily, Assets for Independence, is a funder, and we fund Megan's project. And so when they put together their proposal, they said, we'd like to offer a 2-to-1 match rate on, I think it was $1,000 of savings, but I could be wrong. And so that fit within our guidelines, and they explained, and so that was how they wanted to design their program. And so, how you want to think about what match rate you should offer is kind of the intersection of 3 points. One is, how much do the different assets cost in your community, specifically the out-of-pocket expenses that are going to be the barrier to your participants actually investing in the assets. So in the case of a home, so things like closing costs and down payments, obviously the rest traditionally gets financed through a mortgage. So how close can you get them to covering those immediate out-of-pocket expenses? Then second thing you want to look at is, how much can they save on a monthly basis? And so what should be their total savings goal? And then, so their savings goal paired with the matching funds they receive, you want to get that as close as possible to the cost of the out-of-pocket expenses for their asset. And then the third thing to take into consideration when setting the match rate that you're going to offer is going to be the amount of funding that you can raise from your non-federal funding sources. Because, obviously, if we would want to be able to offer the maximum amount of assistance, $4,000 to each person. But if it's more realistic to maybe fundraise, to be able to, but if you can only realistically raise a certain amount of money and you would rather help more people with a slightly smaller amount of assistance, then that's a good trade-off to make, as opposed to maybe serving fewer people but with a higher amount of assistance. not that I'm saying one, I don't mean to endorse one approach or the other. It's a decision that you have to make, based on the amount of money you can raise and the amount and the volume of clients you want to serve. What is the, what's the balance you want to be able to strike with your program of number of people, higher number of people at a smaller number of at a smaller level of assistance versus smaller number of people at a higher level of assistance. So I hope that helps answer your question.
I think that makes sense. So we have a question for Melinda. What program requirements or program aspects have you added to the IDEA program since its beginning?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. We've actually changed quite a few things over time. We've added more topics to our curriculum. We've added a topic on how to buy a good used car fairly recently, and we've also added a session on relationships and money that were not part of what we did when we first began. And those sessions have just been really well received because people have a lot of questions about those topics. We've also added a lot to do with the career side of things, so we spend much more time now than we did at the beginning on working on career goals and helping participants to resolve conflict in their job and negotiate better working hours or better wages, things along those lines. And let's see, I would say those would be the primary things, just continuing to expand the curriculum and then more emphasis on the career side of things than we originally had in the beginning.
Sure. You see, we had a really interesting question by Lauren Simmons. I hope I pronounced that name right. How will funds be impacted by sequestration?
Well, let's see. I'm going to guess that is a question for Assy. And what I would tell you is that we're just as a DC area person, we're just starting to figure out what that's going to look like now at this point. But that at this point, the funding for 2013 has been allocated and is in place, and we've already started accepting applications. So I feel pretty confident that the 2013 rounds are going to continue to be funded at the expected level. So that's $15 million of funds to be bidded to be granted out across the two proposal cycles in March and May. So and then I can't say what the future will hold.
Sure. We're going to ask a few more questions here, but I just want to let you know that since we sort of started late, we'll be going just a few minutes past 3. So another question from the audience was, can you give us any advice on contacting a financial institution about being a financial partner for an AFI IDA program? I guess that one was for Emily too.
So is that about the how to pick one out, or kind of how to talk to them about it?
I would say probably, probably both. How to identify and then also how to approach them.
Okay, yeah, so in terms of how to identify them, what I would say you want to think about are things like their convenience factor for your savers in terms of the different ways that they will accept deposits. So, some options that, you want to see are, in branch, but then also Megan mentioned use of direct deposit. I think it was Megan mentioned use of direct deposit. You would definitely, I think that is a really good way to go because that really helps, automate the savings process and helps make it not a decision that people have to make once a month to participate, but rather it just kind of happens automatically, and that's something a lot of us benefit from. So, you'd want to make sure that it's a financial institution that could accept deposits by direct deposit, maybe by mail, maybe by ATM. I don't know that anybody does that, but you could always explore that option. And then you want to make sure that they have an account product that matches with what the IDA is, the way the IDA has to be set up in terms of the AFI regulations, and that's that it has to be a custodial account that's jointly owned by the individual saver as well as by the grantee organization. And so that product can be either on the commercial banking or on the personal banking side of the financial institution. And And so, and then beyond that, you just want to think about just the ease of working with the financial institution for your staff in terms of how how responsive will they be. And then I think you also definitely want to think about would they be willing to financially support your project, as Megan gave the example of how she does it, of how the Catholic Charities does it. The opportunity to host these individual development accounts, which represents a bunch of new savers who are upwardly mobile economically, is a great chance where they don't, that's marketing that the banks don't even have to do. You're sending clients to them. So it's like their marketing dream come true. And then in terms of holding that project reserve account, that is relatively stable account that's going to be up to $2 million that's just going to be sitting there for them to use. And then, of course, they can get Community Reinvestment Act credit for supporting your IDA program. So there's just a lot of good reasons, both philanthropic and return on investment, business-oriented, that there are, a lot of good reasons for the bank to want to financially support the bank or credit union to want to financially support your project. And so, I would definitely consider that as part of when you're selecting which financial institution partner to work with, is who would also be interested in financially supporting your project. Let's see. Does that sound like it answers the question?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Oh, sure.
I was going to say I can talk even more about this, but I'd say probably come to one of the webinars, the full webinars especially about funding and developing partnerships. Sure.
Well, it looks like that we will have to wrap up our question and answer session at that, because it looks like we're out of time. Thank you so much for attending this webinar today. I hope everyone has a better understanding of how to plan an IDA, and hopefully more Illinois communities will have access to the power of IDA match savings because of this webinar. You'll be receiving a thank you email for attending today's webinar containing a link to an IABG website where a video recording of this webinar will be available. Today was the third of IABG's 2013 webinar series addressing a host of topics important to the asset building movement, so keep an eye out for our upcoming webinars. Additionally, we would love any feedback on today's webinar that you can offer. It'll only take a minute or so less to answer a very short survey. For those interested in connecting program work and the challenges you see on the ground level, we encourage you to engage with us in our policy work. The more people across the state aware of asset building policies, the better. This legislative session, we are leading on 2 bills. One would remove the asset test from TANF. The asset test prevents families receiving TANF assistance from having more than $2,000 in savings, a terrible disincentive to getting out of poverty. The second bill addresses the growing retirement insecurity that we are all seeing on the ground level by creating access to retirement savings accounts for workers in Illinois. In addition to these topics, we also work on issues related to payday lending, credit scores, and creating universal children's savings accounts in the state. If you're interested in any of these issues, we would love to engage with you further in that work. I would also like to invite everyone to join the IABG Coalition. By joining the IABG, your voice as someone interested in everyone having access to the tools to be financially secure will be heard in the Illinois legislature, and the visibility of your organization will be elevated through our social media outlets. Additionally, you will gain access to amazing learning opportunities like today's webinar and our shared learning roundtables. To join the coalition or to learn more about IABG and the issues and policies we care about, please feel free to contact me at ebrown@heartlandalliance.org. Thank you so much, and have a great afternoon.